Christian rationalism, spiritualist philosophy, strengthen, enlighten, spiritualize. Christian Rationalism, 45th edition. The aim of this book is to enlighten readers in a concise and simple way about the meaning of life through a spiritualistic point of view, explaining the principles through which one can coherently form an understanding of the whole universe, that is the life in the universe in its ample and constructive aspects, and with it, one can identify oneself as a participant in an evolutive process. Since ancient times, human beings have questioned the mysteries of life, where one comes from, what will be one's future, what will happen after death, and what is the meaning of life. These are the questions that have been asked for a long time. Only the knowledge of spiritual life and all beings' common origin will give humanity a glimpse of new horizons on earth and will assist us to find the paths towards peace, which is achieved as a result of an established fraternal relationship among people. Christian Rationalism Headquarters Board of Directors coordinated the review, updating, translation, layout and printing of this book, printed in Brazil. All rights reserved. This book or any portion thereof may not be reproduced or used in any manner whatsoever without the express written permission of the editor. The addresses of Christian Rationalism's houses are available via phone +55 21 211 72100. International calls. Also available on Christian Rationalism website. Christian Rationalism Headquarters, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Christian Rationalism, Science and Philosophy, not religion. Table of Contents. To the reader, page 9. General Outlines, page 13. Chapter 1, Evolution, page 19. Chapter 2, Force and Matter, page 25. Chapter 3, Space, page 30. Chapter 4, The Spirit, page 38. Chapter 5, Thought, page 45. Chapter 6, Free Will, page 52. Chapter 7, The Aura, page 57. Chapter 8, Incarnation of the Spirit, page 61. Chapter 9, Disincarnation of the Spirit, page 75. Chapter 10, Mediumnity and Mediums, Physical and Psychic Phenomena, page 86. Chapter 11, Psychic Imbalance, page 97. Chapter 12, Psychic Normalization, page 107. Chapter 13, Valor, page 111. Chapter 14, Character, page 116. Chapter 15, The Family and Children's Upbringing, page 120. Synthesis of Christian Rationalism's Principles, page 128. Conclusion, page 130. To the reader, the aim of this book is to enlighten readers in a concise and simple way about the meaning of life through a spiritualistic point of view, explaining the principles through which one can coherently form an understanding of the whole universe, that is the life in the universe in its ample and constructive aspects, and with it, one can identify oneself as a participant in an evolutive process. Since ancient times, human beings have questioned the mysteries of life, where one comes from, what will be one's future, what will happen after death, and what is the meaning of life. These are the questions that have been asked for a long time. The longing for learning about the apparently obscure transcendental world led humanity to create myths and fantasies. In the heart of spiritist phenomena, Myths were created about the existence origins. Based on these, it was determined what should be commonly accepted and what was not allowed to be acknowledged about the universe. And it was like this for a long time, until the idea to test theories via experiments flourished. The experimental method, the basis of modern science, contributed to the dismissal of myths and taboos but created a distance between science and the conceptions of spiritual nature. Nowadays, therefore, the very same scientific stance begins to divest the validity of this distancing. A wave of interest is being formed with respect to methods of investigating that differ from the traditional ones. As one can determine similarities between current physics theory, through experimental methods, and some metaphysics concepts, originating from mediumistic researches, which in other words are investigations based in perceptive capacities that surpass the possibilities of the five human senses. In this context, it may be a sign of a change in paradigm of the scientific method, which resurges and renews itself, in an evident way within the studies accomplished in the spirituality sphere. In this field, the results escape the limits sorted by science itself. However, in a serious investigation of metaphysical phenomena, it is not by the fact that exists external evidences that are resistant to the repetitious experiments screening that one should diminish the importance of the internal evidences that shows that the spirit's essence is a parcel of the whole universe, a parcel that is inseparable and indistinguishable of the whole. The research of the extrasensorial sphere is read as a transcendental aspect of life. Therefore, due to being vast and deep, it presents difficulties related to the building of a unifying synthesis. Sometimes the results are lost in digressions of an intellectual nature, and in many others they get fainter within mystical and fanciful considerations. Luis de Matos, humanist and expert in spirituality, codified Christian rationalism, an enlightening philosophy, to answer the innermost questions about existence and to offer a safe guide for living in this world. He formulated the basic postulate that force and matter compose the universe. He outlined in a clear way the principles that should rule life on Earth, and he established, based on study, the code of conduct for conscious, balanced, and harmonious without any conceit and within the phenomenal reality of the unfolded evolutive process. Luis de Matos contemplated the theoretical aspects of spirituality, without neglecting to provide the implications arising from this knowledge in actual daily life. Christian rationalism was codified by Luis de Matos between 1910, the year of the foundation of this philosophy, and 1914, when he published the first edition before it was named Rational and Scientific Spiritism, Christian. In the period between 1915 and 1926, year of his passing, 3 more editions were published, updated by the spirituality master himself. The original name was maintained until the 14th edition in 1940. From the 15th edition, in 1942, this server's name changed to the current title. In 1939, for the first time, this book was translated from Portuguese into English. The current edition is available simultaneously in both languages. The English translation goal was to maintain the paragraph's fluidity and the writing style accordingly to the original book in Portuguese, within the potentials of each language. In an adequate way, some expressions of some sections of this edition were updated to facilitate comprehension by the ones who study spirituality, maintaining the philosophical content of 15 chapters of the prior edition, disposed in an order that allows the researchers in general to develop a line of thought that will lead them to their own conclusions. The editor, November 2015. General outlines. Christian rationalism is a spiritualistic philosophy that cares for the evolution of the spirit and explains, through rational reasoning, what we are and what we are doing in this school planet named Earth. Christian rationalism expresses 2 guiding concepts that assert its entire philosophical context. Firstly, rationalism is connected to the process of reasoning, logic, and rationale. One has to pursue being rational through reasoning or through well-guided thought. Reasoning is enlightening when profoundly and precisely operated and when elevated. When its use is carefully polished, reasoning leads to the right conclusions about life. Reasoning with awareness promotes a solid basis for reaching truthful convictions. It unravels and finds what is being looked for within the interweaving of ideas. Secondly, Christianity is associated with rationalism and completes the revealing sense of this philosophy, a code of conduct that gathers the spiritualistic principles and Christianity precepts. As we say code of conduct, we are referring to the person's procedure to the collectivity and toward himself or herself. To be a Christian is to be honorable, prudent, moderate, courageous, and fair. To be a Christian rationalist is to live an earthly life under the spiritualistic norms of the highest standard. It is to know, to prepare the spirit for the present and future life as an enlightened being, with awareness of self-state and self-spiritual conditions. Christian rationalism is a complete set of spiritualistic teachings because it conveys to the individuals a self-knowledge, being able to demonstrate what is the most important and fundamental, your own higher self, remote, present, and future, which depends on health, well-being, happiness, and with this a world less violent, less intolerant, and more just and understanding. Nowadays, as it was in the past, everyone who studies human issues and conflicts knows that spiritual education can enlighten people to be peaceful and honorable. In this regard, however, there is a need to erase from common sense the unrealistic way many live. It is indispensable that one leaves behind inaccurate ideas and teachings about existence, about which many who look for understanding about transcendental facts of life end up confused. It is sad that this still happens. Once being in touch with such useful, necessary, valuable, and indispensable knowledge, the individual is wandering for a long time after protection and aid of supposed divinities of nature, as one would have learned to trust oneself and seek support and security on its own vast and invincible willpower and its own righteous thoughts. Readers do not think that Christian rationalism, with the publication of this book, is disclosing unprecedented information. From antiquity to the present, spiritualism is an object of philosophical studies. Researchers, intellectuals, men and women of science eager to reveal more about the spiritual life to humanity. When encoding its principles, Christian rationalism affirms that the universe is composed of force and matter. Force incites and moves all bodies, being organic matter. It is the intelligent principle that interpenetrates the entire universe. The intelligent principle is understood by many as God, preferably named by Christian rationalism as creative power, great focus or universal intelligence, of which we are a parcel, an emanation, that contains the same attributes in its latent form to be developed and perfected in countless earthly existences. The creative power maintains the whole universe ruled laws, to which everyone is subjected. It is not admissible by Christian rationalism probations, predestinations, or miracles. The Christian rationalist's philosophy teaches us that the occurrences of our lives derive from the use of our free will and spiritual faculty controlled by the thought, reasoning, and willpower. Thus, we are what we think. The evil we wish for our counterparts we are wishing for ourselves. The good we do to us will return, as we are who we want to become. Therefore, this philosophy teaches us to not harbor sentiments of hate, jealousy, or ill will. As soon as one begins to reason within the first phases of spiritual evolution, the individual feels, even if in a vague and confused manner, the existence of the universal intelligence, of which one is not capable of defining. This way, it is born, a tendency to adoration, as the spiritual unpreparedness condition he or she lives justifies it. One can understand perfectly that certain part of humanity that does not have a spirituality concept can go, for instance, further along than the worship of natural elements, as one lacks the basis of understanding to detach oneself from the perplexity of adoration one lives in. To the attentive observer, it is not difficult to evaluate the spirituality degree of the individuals if one manifests the tendency of adoration, as well as the greater or lesser intensity of this propensity. The way of adoration and what is adored vary with the awakening of life consciousness, until one reaches the point of being able to detach oneself from the adoration sentiment. The ones that venerate abstract things, after reaching the necessary spiritual enlightening, will perceive how misplaced this veneration is, inasmuch as how naive their present understanding of this idea is, which they nourished one day by revering nature's elements. It is not necessary to have a lot of imagination to understand that these incoherencies represent during the delicate period of formation of character throughout infancy, and how they contribute during adulthood to dull the reasoning and to impose difficulties in one expansion within the vast spirituality sphere. When the individual begins to comprehend what he or she really is as a spirit, force, intelligence, and power, when one is convinced that he or she has the spiritual attributes to rationally succeed any difficulty, when one awakens his or her conscious mind to the fact that one is a parcel of the whole harmonious universe, inseparable from the universal intelligence, the initial conceptions of protection will fall flat. Within its vast concept of life's understanding, there are the clear elements of conviction, by means of which one can free oneself from conceptions that imprison him or her to miracles and supernatural mysteries. There are no privileged individuals nor other protections. Everyone, without exception, is subject to the same principles, rules, and evolutive process. Invariably, one makes the same path and the same cycle. Therefore there is an utmost and meritorious principle of justice. One needs to convince himself or herself that one cannot count on others' assistance to free him or her from the consequences of the mistakes he or she makes. One will have to retrieve these errors with good deeds in many existences as necessary to accomplish it. Therefore, one will think carefully before committing any inadequate action. Then what really matters is the way in which a person processes his or her evolutive march, conquering step by step spiritual independence. The one that knows to evaluate the responsibility that one carries in his or her acts certainly will do his or her best to establish himself or herself within the teachings that transmit the spiritual factual knowledge. Christian rationalism, without any interest other than to awaken humanity to the reality of life, aims to convey the clarification that one needs to reach a clear spiritual condition to facilitate one's own life. Students of Christian rationalism learn to trust themselves in their moral capacity and their willpower to fight and win. Therefore, they are not adorers, supplicants, or lamenters. They know that there are grand obstacles surging, at each step, in their life's path, but they also know that they can win with the very spiritual resources they possess. Thus, it is necessary that each one fulfill their duties, accomplishing the parts that one is responsible for, with attention, with the ease and the soul aiming toward the key meaning of existence, which is spiritual evolution. Christian rationalism's principles gather concepts and orientations of upright behavior for the people who desire to practice it. Knowledge about life is a continuous process of study. Therefore, Christian rationalism makes an eloquent and constant appeal to study and reasoning in the sense that humanity would comprehend the imperative need to surrender itself to a perseverant effort, to become better and better and to grow spiritually. This book, within its natural simplicity, is profound and should be understood by the reader as the foundation of spiritualistic knowledge, the basis of which is built by one's own effort. This is a serious research work and is elucidative for reading and investigating. It is able to open new horizons as a panoramic view amplification that puts right before one's eyes perspectives that can contribute to impressing a new orientation to life and assisting for this life to change, at each step, for the better, reaching a meaning more practical, ampler, more objective, safer, and authentic. At this point, the reader must be interested in knowing the findings that are conveyed by this philosophical school that is Christian rationalism. Your interest will be vastly fulfilled within the next pages, in which one can see the life problems addressed in candid, simple, and objective writing. One will feel, through the reading of each chapter, the warmth of the message given by this philosophy to humanity, with the expectation to contribute to peace among individuals and that the world will become fraternal and a better one.